Hello biscuits, it's Cupcake Kamisama back here and welcome to another installment of Vlogmas. Today's video will try and establish what is the best Christmas release of 2018. I have printed out pictures of every Christmas release this year that I could find. There's a variety of both Japanese and indie brands. Not all of them are strictly Christmassy. There might be one or two that's of more wintry and just happen to be announced in December kind of thing. But I have selected the ones that were sort of this or Christmas rather than this is anything that any brand decided to release in December. And at the end, hopefully, we'll decide which one is the best. So, in a random order that I have them printed out on my sheet, let's get to it. First one is Lady Sloth's Winter Spices, and call me biased, but I really like it. I've loved it from the moment it was just a print preview when she was trying to decide on which 3 of the 4 colorways to choose from. We have an OP, a JSK and a skirt in either blue, green or red. Now, all the cuts are really nice. I'm not necessarily big on the melty color on the OP, but that's just because I prefer things to be symmetrical, and I don't associate this kind of print with melty things like chocolate or ice cream, so I probably would have stuck to a simpler colour, but this is a very minor thing. Overall, all the cuts are really nice. Yes, the JSK is a bit high-waisted, which is not so much a thing for me, but it does have a nice sweetheart over here, which I do appreciate. All of these cuts come with pockets because Lady Sloth is amazing. And I'm loving the fact how, if you know a thing or two about Christmas, then this is a very obvious Christmas print, because you'll know that the different spices pictured here, there's honey, there's cinnamon, there's some actual gingerbread cookies are used in making gingerbread cookies that are traditionally served at Christmas. But if you don't know that much about Christmas baking, then you'll just look at this and go, well, it's a bunch of ingredients, it's a food print, essentially. So I like that, that's very clever. Yes, the green one kind of might give it away, that is a Christmassy print, but I love it. I've had the opportunity to see all 3 of them, yes, all 3 cuts and colorways when I was in Madrid. Lovely colours, the quality of the fabric is superb. It's 100% cotton with cotton lining, so it's going to be breathable if you want to wear it in summer, and easy to wash and all this. My only issue with this is I'm not keen on the ribbons and bows being yellow. I can see why she's made that choice because the print is predominantly yellow. I'm not a fan, but luckily they're all detachable. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a solid 9 because the things that I'm not quite so keen on are very minor. You can remedy them quite easily by simply going for a different cut. Then, it's a Chinese brand called XM, no idea if that stands for anything, and the design is called Snowball. Oh my god, do I have issues with this. This looks to me as if someone looked at Angelic Pretty's Jewellery Snow from last year and said, that's not enough. And they've taken an idea of that flocked print on chiffon or whatever that one actually is, and piled on extra shit And it's not even shit of good quality, let's face it. I mean, to begin with, it's not even high waist, it's an Empire waist with that awkward seam going on here. And then it goes straight into a cupcake, so unless you're like this thin, you're just gonna look even chubbier than you are. You're going to look round. I'm not keen on that. All those pom-poms, the pom-poms are not the worst. I am going to give it justice. The pom-poms are not the worst. I wish that they were detachable. I only have one photo printed, so I can't quite remember if they are or not. But the pom-poms are kind of giving me bunny vibes, and I don't think there's anything else here that screams bunnies. I know they were probably trying to go for this fluffy snowball, as it's called snowball thing, but I'm just not quite buying it. That fur trim at the bottom looks hideous. It looks so cheap. It looks like it's felt from a craft store. I am not keen on it whatsoever, and moreover, it looks like it's dragging that dress down. There's just so much going on that you lose the whole idea of simple snowflake print on a chiffony kind of fabric, rather than being light and airy and giving you those winter vibes and dreamland, winter wonderland fantasy. You look at this and you go, A, this dress is pregnant. I mean, that mannequin looks pregnant, which if you are, get that, because at least it'll hide your bump. But most people don't aim to look pregnant when they're not. And I feel like they just gone for way too many trims. It needs a heavy editing hand. It's not the worst thing I've seen. I've seen worse Christmas releases. This is not as bad, but as far as Christmas releases this year go, it's very poor. I do not like it. I don't even want to give it a mark, but purely because it's not the worst Christmas one I've ever seen, I'll give it a 2 out of 10, but of this year's, it might end up being a 1 out of 10. Then we get to Angelic Pretty's Snow Glass Dome. Now, I realise that they've also done a more proper Christmas print, so technically I probably shouldn't be including that, but I feel like we have to, because it's Angelic Pretty. You have to discuss it so they can get better, hopefully. When that first preview photograph came out, because it's an all over print, it looked a little bit too squarish, and it looked as if there were gaps in between certain elements. Now that it's actually been released, I know that it's a fault of mainly that photo and the colourway that was pictured, which I think was lavender. So you get Sax Navy, lavender and grey. So it's quite a standard winter release colourways, both for AP and I think in general. They all work for winter, they all work with the print. I do feel like the things inside the glass domes are slightly random. Like they just went for, let's see what's pretty and stuck inside a glass dome, rather than try and create a story or build a more cohesive theme within that. So what do we have? There's a castle, a pair of point shoes, and a swan against a snowy Christmas tree background. Were they going with Snow Lake? I don't really know, it's hard to tell. But it's not the worst combination, I will give him that. It is decently laid out. Although, unless you get quite close up, you can't tell what's inside those glass domes. From afar, or if the picture's quite small, it just seems like shapes. So, meh. It doesn't excite me, but I'm not mad at it. It's just sort of, the problem that AP has is they've had one extremely successful glass dome print, which is Sugar Dream Dome. When you think of Lolita prints with glass domes, you think of this. And even though there's been other ones, AP alone has done 2, including this ones that I know of. Baby has done at least 2. Like, it's been done and done again, but you're competing against that prototype, so to speak, which set the bar really high. And this one doesn't go anywhere near that. It doesn't give me the cozy winter wonderland feelings that Sugar Dream Dome does. But at the same time, it's not hideous. That's all I can say, really. It's not hideous. The cuts are very predictable for AP, so you get the standard cut OP, which is alright. My issue with it is that Peter Pan collar is really wide. I can't think of that many people who would fit this sort of cut, but it's still cute. The JSK I dislike because it's high-waisted, although the wider straps do make it slightly nicer looking, I guess. But I'm still not mad about it. It's not something that would be flattering on me. I can't see it being flattering on that many people. And then you get a barrette and a rectangle headdress with it, which is... it's alright, at least if you have some other winter releases you might be able to find a match there, but I do miss the days where there'd be more released than just the dresses. So it's middling, it's averaging, it's not repulsive, but it's not exciting me either. Let's straight down the middle, 5 out of 10. Then there's a Chinese brand called Pretty Rock Baby. I'm just imagining a rock, like a stone, having a baby and it being really pretty. Pretty Rock Baby. The print itself is called Merry Christmas, as far as I can gather. But it's deer. Just a bunch of deer. Now, very stupidly, I only printed myself a picture of DOP in one colorway, and I know that there was a JSK and there was at least 2 other colorways that I can't quite remember right now. So I'm only going to comment on this and whatever I can recall. From what I can tell, the OP is a sack dress, so again, it's a love or hate thing. I seem to recall the JSK being a regular kind of cut, nothing too major, nothing too offensive. The print is really big on this, and the best thing that Pretty Rock Baby has done is kept the cut simple, so they're letting the print shine. Whilst to me that print doesn't necessarily scream Christmas or even Merry Christmas. So if you didn't know that this was called Merry Christmas, you wouldn't really think it's Christmassy. But as a winter print, I quite like it. I'm not big for fawn deer prints, and I feel like the heyday of that is kind of past now. But I like it. I feel like it gives options to classical Lolitas and maybe those who are fans of Morike to have something that is very obviously wintry. Those deer are walking on snow and there's snowflakes in the background, to give them a print that they can dress up for Christmas without having to go for those sugary sweet prints and cuts. It's a bit more classic, it's a lot more subdued. From what I remember, the JSK had like simple white lace at the bottom, whereas the OP has ruffles of what looks like a fawn print. And I feel like it would have been better if they used that same white polka dot lace, especially because that deer print ruffle is a different colour and shade, well, different shade than the deer themselves. So it kind of jars a little bit for me, but those are quite minor things. It's not for me, but I can see why people might like it. I can see how it could be Christmassy, and in its own quirky way, it's quite adorable. Like I said, it could be quite versatile. You don't have to do Lolita coordinate with it. You could take it full Morike, you could do Otomeke, you could probably just throw it on with a Christmas jumper. So yeah, it's alright. I'm feeling quite positive. 6 out of 10? Objectively, it's probably more like a 7 out of 10, but just because it's not my thing, for me personally, fine. Let's do 6.5. Cut it down the middle. Then we get to Angelic Pretty's actual Christmas release, which was called Candy Carol. I'll start with the cuts because it's the same old story with AP. You get a long sleeve OP with a wide collar, a high waist JSK. It's the same cut over and over again. There's nothing more to be said about it. The collar on this OP is slightly nicer than that on Snow Glass Dome, but I dislike the bib on the JSK and how the shoulder straps are having that very wide, it's like a thin-ish strap with a wide lace that gives it like an apron skirt kind of vibe and maid vibe, which I don't get why you'd stock these on. The bib, okay, maybe they were going for sort of more toy, childish vibes, I don't know. Still don't like it. As far as the print itself goes, I had been convinced that this print came in ivory, red and green, but no, it's ivory, red and navy. Now on those photos that is some weird ass navy. That is not what navy is supposed to look like. The print itself, if that was a picture framed, is quite nice. It's giving you all the right Christmassy vibes. You get teddy bears, candy canes, wreaths, presents, all the elements we love. But because the various elements of it are different sizes, it creates a kind of a boxy look, and it's an all over print. So you'll have pockets that'll seem like they're saturated because you see a big bear next to a big wreath, and then you'll have pockets that seem almost empty because the elements on there are so small. So I'm not fond of that layout, and I almost wish that the print was slightly more saturated in colour. On the ivory, it's not quite so bad. You can still see it because obviously ivory provides enough of a contrast for it, but on the red it blends in. All the red elements kind of disappear, all the browns, which are warm toned, kind of start blending with that red, so it doesn't pop as much. And on the navy you start to lose all the green elements and all of this, so I do wish there was a bit more contrast between the various elements. And I did want to like it again, like when that print preview came out and all you saw was the bears and what was going to be on the print. It got me excited. I was thinking, oh, this might be really nice. But then you see the finished product, and not only are the cuts meh, the print itself and the way it looks is a bit meh. This one disappoints me more than Snow Glass Dome because I wanted to like this. But ultimately, they both leave me with the same kind of feeling. I have been very nitpicky, but the overall design of it doesn't repulse me, but it doesn't excite me. It's just, it's another one. Okay, yeah, next. So I'll stick with the same one. It's a 5 out of 10. Then we have Alice and the Pirates Snow Globe Train. So snow globes are coming back this year. They're a big thing, clearly. As far as I've gathered, Baby the Starshine Bride hasn't done a Christmas print this year, which I'm a bit upset about because you kind of expect the Kumyas, but they are re-releasing one. But because it's a re-release, I'm not gonna talk about it. So let's just focus on Alice and the Pirates. Oh dear. Again, I only have 3 photos, and I'm sure there was a 4th colourway. I think the 4th was black. So there's definitely navy and sax. I believe there was black and lavender as well. So again, your typical kind of winter print colourways. I'll start with the print because I dislike it quite a lot. Primarily because when I want a print, I want it to look like an illustration, not like someone playing with Photoshop. And this is the sort of Photoshop looking kind of print. So I'm not a fan of this. Granted, looking at it now from a distance and on a smaller photo, it's not as obvious, but when you see it in real life, it's obviously a bit bigger than that, so not a fan. And I do feel like you have this giant print on the border, but then anything above it is that bit too empty. They could have upped the contrast on that night sky starry thing, so that, or just added something else there, so that it did seem like you had a background rather than just colour and then the print. So I'm not keen on this. You do get 3 cuts. You get 2 JSKs and a skirt. I can't remember which JSK is which one. I think the more regular waisted one is JSK 1. And you look at it and you think, it's not the worst, until you realise that those are 2 random side frills. It's not a bustle that goes all the way around the back. Those are very randomly inserted side bustles. It's not a Rococo kind of print. It's not trying to be very classical or very Rococo or princessy. It's a Christmas print, because once you start looking into it, you'll see Christmassy elements inside those glass stones. It's not just snowy and wintry. Why? They just look so out of context. Yes, we've seen plenty of bustles at the back on prints where you think, is that really necessary? Does that really go with the theme? But when it's at the back, A, you don't really see it as much, and B, at least it's a sort of cohesive thing. These are 2 sticking out on both sides for no apparent reason at all. I dislike it very thoroughly and with a passion. Anything else that might have been good about that cut, like the fact that the waist is not as high, and that the bodice is nice fitted, or that the skirt is quite generous in volume, all that fades because of that one design choice. Whoever agreed on that choice, because you can suggest it, someone up there has to approve it. Whoever approved that was either having a terrible day or they need to go to Specsavers. This does not go. The skirt is high-waisted one, and it is quite nice. It's very simple. I can't remember whether that has a bustle at the back or not, but it's Alice and the Pirates. So even though the skirt has partial showing from what I remember, it's not going to be enough for majority of people. So of the 3, it might be the best cut. Yeah, it probably is the best cut of the 3, just because it's very simple and there's not a lot to ruin. And then you look at the JSK2, which kind of reads a bit more like an OP. It has that empire waist. It has a bustle at the front, potentially at the back, I can't remember. And like from here down, it's quite simple. If you hate the print, you're still not going to be a fan of it, but it's alright. From here up, have you seen that? I think it's called Cordelia OP. It has slightly longer sleeves, but Alice and the Pirates has used that cut before. It has those thin straps here and then off-shoulder straps down there, which I think you might be able to move up, I can't remember. It's not a bad cut, but it doesn't go with the print. This is more of like a, again, princessy, historical inspired kind of cut. And if that was a non-printed piece, or if the print was a lot more classic or even gothic, it would have worked perfectly. But for a Christmassy thing, with a train full of snow globes, I don't think so. So that gives us one potentially usable cut out of 3, but it's unusable if you're quite skinny, because Alice and the Pirates. With a print that I personally dislike. It's not as bad as that Snowball one. That one was train wreck. No pun intended. This one is just a no. I'll say 4 out of 10 because that skirt does save it quite a bit. And the JSK2 cut on its own is nice, it just doesn't go with the theme. Then we have another Chinese brand called Lemon Honey, and the design is called Snow Sugar. It only has a JSK. It comes in 3 colorways. There's lavender, sax and dark blue. And this is how you do, inspired by Jewelry Snow, but not Jewelry Snow, snowflake print. It's very lovely to look at. It's set out evenly and there's no awkward gaps, and it's not too busy. Each colorway works very well with the print. Granted, on the photos that navy look makes the fabric look like it's dark denim, but I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm pretty sure it's just a regular polyester whatnot. And each snowflake, as it should be, is different. You can actually keep looking at it and find different details on the snowflakes. I can't quite recall or see on the photos if the lace is custom or pre-made, whether that was polka dots or something different, but it's the right length. It works well. Yes, it is a little bit too high-waisted for me to like, but I would love to see someone wear it because I can see so many different options to coordinate it. You can go full OTT, or you could keep it quite casual and toned down. It's very pretty. It's not a Christmassy print, but it's a great versatile print for winter that you could do quite a lot with. And all the trims that are there, unlike Snowball, do add something. It's not just throwing things on it for the sake of having more. They are adding charm where it needs to be, and they've stopped themselves before it got too much. So well done, Lemon Honey. Again, because it's a Chinese brand, not only do you get sharing, you also get different sizes, so extra points for size inclusivity. This is great. This is probably the nicest Christmas / winter print I've seen this year. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I am taking one off for the fact that it's a generic winter print rather than specifically Christmas. It just happens to be released at Christmas, but you can do a lot with it. And last one, I am going to butcher the name of that brand. It's called Bomuzi High. Very sorry. And the print is called Christmas Deer. Now this one, you do get an OP and a JSK with it. I do remember there being other colorways, but I can't remember what they were. I'm terrible at this. It's because I need to be doing that on my tablet rather than printing things out. Sorry, I'll be better next time. But it does come in 2 cuts, JSK and EOP. There's several colorways. I want to say there was a light blue one, but don't quote me on that. I'll insert it somewhere here. The one I'm looking at is red. Because I've only just looked at Pretty Rock Baby's deer print, it's unavoidable that I'll make comparisons. As far as print goes, this is a bit more random. Pretty Rock Babies just had the deer stepping on snow with some snowflakes in the background. Very simple, minimalistic. Everything works. This one is slightly confusing because you still have deer in that same sort of, you know, that stance that deer do, that's just like, am I looking at something? Am I not looking at something? Is there a camera? Are they taking pictures? Doing that, being very deer-like, but against the background of a Christmas tree with presents. If that was a picture, it would obviously be photoshopped, but because it's an illustration, you can do whatever. It is a pretty illustration, I will grant it that. It just seems like you're trying to merge two things that have the most tentative connection possible. But the print is nicely set out. I'm not sure if you can call it a border print, because as far as I can tell, it's just that one illustration at the front of the skirt, a bit of gap, and potentially that same illustration at the back. Whichever one it is, it's taken up a good chunk of the skirt of those dresses, and the background that it's on is neither too full nor too empty, so you get a balance, and it doesn't feel it's not an eyesore to look at. Both cuts are a bit more on the high-waisted side, which is quite typical these days in general, but they've again done quite well at not oversaturating it with trims and letting the print speak for itself. I feel like I like the JSK cut of what I remember of the Pretty Rock Babies Merry Christmas print JSK. I feel like I prefer this JSK over the other one, but I prefer the other OP to this. The reason being, OP has a very random gather at what looks just above the elbow, which puffs the sleeves out here up until your wrist cuff. And I feel like they could have done without that. It's a very random thing, and you have to have quite skinny arms for this to work, because this will restrict your elbow movement quite a bit unless you're pretty skinny. If they had kept the whole sleeve like this, or straight, I think it would have been better. But everything else, the rows of narrow lace and the buttons over here, the lace at the hem, it's very well chosen. It complements the print and the cut quite well. I feel like if you're comparing these two, if Pretty Rock Babies Dear print is trying to cater to classic Lolitas and people who like Otome and Morike, and deliberately trying to keep it simpler for those purposes, this one is trying to cater more to sweeter Lolitas or to classic Lolitas who do like a bit of extra sugar on their prints and things like this. So they are catering to two different audiences, and the only thing they have in common is that both audiences like Dear. This one is certainly a lot more Christmassy. It's very obvious by the fact that there's a Christmas tree right in the middle of the print. It's alright. Again, it's not something that I would get, but if you're after a Christmassy print and you want Deers on it, then this might be your best bet, because as far as I know, every other Christmas print will either not have Deer, or if it has Deer, it's not an explicitly Christmassy print. You do get was it Classical Fairy Tales from AP, which kind of looks like it should be a Christmassy print, but it's not really. It's a solid design. It's okay. I'll give it a 6 out of 10, because it is quite nice. I can see people looking at it and going, I want that. So that's it. As you've gathered, we've managed to roast some prints completely, adore some other ones, and we had a nice middle ground. So the winners are Lady Sloth and Lemon Honey, and I am liking the fact how indie brands have taken over and decided to up their game and bring us some class Christmas prints, because the Japanese brands have just not been delivering. I do kind of wish that the other brands would have done something more explicitly Christmassy. Baby normally comes up with a Kumiya print. Meta hasn't done anything. Innocent World's been very quiet. And as much as I tried to keep an eye on Chinese brands, there's way too many and they're way too active for me to keep track of everything. So this is what I managed to find. But I think it's been a good selection for a video like this. I was hoping it was going to be quick, but looking at how much time I've already spent recording, it might not be. So if you stuck all the way through to the end, thank you so much. I do hope you've enjoyed yourself. If you have, then make sure to like this video, comment on it, subscribe to the channel. You can also support me by buying me a cup of coffee. A link to my coffee page is in the description box below. If you click on an eye in that corner, it will take you to a full Vlogmas playlist where you can see everything I've done for Vlogmas 2018 so far. And as always, I encourage all of you to check out my blog, which is Cupcakes and Unicorns, where you'll find more Lolita content. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye!